Hey everybody, it's low carb and keto nutritionist Amy Berger from 2itnutrition.com. Not bringing you keto without the crazy today, but bringing you a nutrition and food related video. If I look exhausted, if I look filthy, I don't know if you can see how dirty my arms are. The video isn't really picking it up. I'm filthy. It's because it is Wednesday, October 2nd, and it's about, let's see, it's 4:15 in the afternoon Eastern Time. I just got back from working at a farm that I work at now 2 days a week. I've mentioned in previous videos that I've worked at small farms and, I am absolutely not a food purist. I get most of my food at the regular store, but I do go to farmers markets now and then and I patronize them when I can. But I'm very sympathetic to budget issues and availability, whatever. I'm not saying everyone has to buy the fancy schmancy food. You know me, that's not my game. But I did want to talk to you about my time at this farm. I moved to Durham, North Carolina last November, so I've been here just a little under a year. And a few months ago, I guess in July, I went with my friend Casey Durango, who lives down the road in Greensboro, North Carolina. She's Go Keto with Casey, CaseyDurango.com. She and I, Wednesday, October 16th, 2 weeks from now, are having another Wednesday Wine Day, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Look at the link that I'll post in the notes. Anyway, Casey and I did a tour of this farm. I had actually bought some meat from this farm at the Durham Farmers Market. I got, I think, beef and pork and maybe some lamb, eggs. They do a whole bunch of stuff. And it was really good. And I've been wanting to explore some farms around here because everywhere I've lived for the past several years, I've worked at a farm or at a farmer's market, or in some capacity I've had some affiliation with a farm. I've either worked in a farm store on the farm premises, or like I said, I've helped at farmers markets. I've worked with animals, I've worked retail, I've done it all. And I just love it. I love it. If I had real courage, I would quit everything. I would put shutters on the blog, put shutters on everything, close up shop, and go live in the middle of nowhere and homestead or farm or do something. All of my years of farm experience have told me I don't have that courage. I do not have the guts to pursue farming full time. You have to have some serious intestinal fortitude to have the courage to do that. So the next best thing to have that farming, country life, grit, just get it doneness, that sort of sensibility, to have that in my life, the next best way to do that is to work at somebody else's farm. So I get to do the work, I get the exposure to that kind of labor, that kind of stuff, without any of the financial risk. I show up, I work, I get paid. It's awesome. So I don't want to tell you the name of the farm just to not prejudice anyone, not spoil anyone. I'm working at a farm in Efland, North Carolina, which is about 30 minutes west of Durham. So anyway, I had bought some meat from this farm in July, and I went on their website just to learn more about the farm because, I was looking for farms potentially to work at a little bit. And so when I saw they do public tours the first Sunday of every month, and it was like the next coming up Sunday was the first of the month, and I was like, oh my God, we can go on the tour. So I wrangled Casey into going with me. We had a great time. It was a lovely farm. And then I found out, so I went on the website. They have part-time work. You can either volunteer or you can work for money or what other kinds of arrangements. And so I said, let me do the tour first. Let me check this place out on the down low and see if it's somewhere I would even want to work. Well, lo and behold, of course it was. Now I've worked on other farms that I would consider just a little notch above in terms of the practices and how they do things. But I think this particular farm does things well enough and is humane enough and in tune with nature enough and respectful for all of nature's processes enough that I am willing to work there, and I'm proud to be working there. So I'm exhausted. I work from 8 to 3 on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and I told them, if I start to fall behind in my other work, I may have to drop down to 1 day a week. But this is the first farm experience I've ever had where I'm working with produce. I've actually only ever worked in the retail shop or with livestock. I've fed chickens, I've fed pigs, I've helped with chicken processing where we do the slaughtering on the farm. I've cut the heads and feet off of chickens. Like, I've done some stuff. And I've been interested in the vegetable production and stuff like that, and I've never gotten to do it until now. I mean, again, I know you can't see on the video, my nails are filthy. Like, there's some serious dirt under these nails. That's soil and weeding all day. And the farm work is absolutely exhausting. It is backbreaking, but it is satisfying in a way that my writing work isn't and never will be. It is satisfying in a way that's sitting in front of a computer, being cerebral all day and letting the blood pool and letting all the circulation sit there. It's such a different thing to be in a hoop house pulling weeds or planting things or piling compost by a shovel. Like, everything's done by hand. We have some limited machinery, but this is a really small farm. What we have is elbow grease. Those are our machines, or our hands and our legs and our backs and our muscles. Now I no notes because I just came from the farm. In fact, I'm gonna stand up. The video's not gonna do it justice, but I want to show you how dirty I am. I gotta move my little chair. You probably, no, you can't see. I mean, my jeans, yeah, I'm gonna sit because you can't see. Trust me, I'm filthy. And guess what? The old combat boots, the old US Air Force desert style combat boots are getting new life as my farm boots. So that's pretty sweet. Okay, here I am again. I wish you could see how dirty I'm absolutely filthy, but it's well earned. It's well earned. It feels great. And this experience, I really did it for selfish reasons. I did it because it makes me feel good. I like doing it. I like working in the fresh air. It's so funny because most of our parents' generation, my parents, baby boomers, our parents would always, and their parents too, the reason they worked so hard is to give us an easier life. And here I am, purposely choosing to go do backbreaking work, purposely choosing to pull weeds and to be bent over all day and to be, trying to move chickens out of their little roosting bins so I can get the eggs that they lay, So, but it's so different from what I do and in my normal day job. And I do get paid. I'm not volunteering, but my pay at the farm, my hourly rate is literally 8 times less than what I make writing. When I write, I charge 8 times more per hour than what I make at the farm. I'm not going to tell you what I charge, but just know I make 8 times less per hour, and I'm still willing to do it because, again, this gives me access to this type of life, this type of opportunity, this type of work, this type of sensibility that I do not get from writing. I love writing my blog. It's not that. It's more like the day-to-day writing that I do that is sort of that stuff you have to do to pay the bills, But I also feel like, as a nutritionist, it gives me a unique perspective on food quality, food production, farm labor issues even. And I am not claiming that I'm any kind of expert or that I've spent like 20 years on farms or that I know all the ins and outs. I don't. But I do feel that compared to the average nutritionist or dietitian or doctor, whoever, who's never set foot on a farm for 5 minutes, I feel like I do maybe have more insight into how this really works. I have insight to the fact that chickens are most definitely 100% not vegetarians. So when you see vegetarian fed on a carton of eggs, that is not a selling point. In fact, to me, that's advertising that you have terrible farm practices, because if your hens are not eating bugs and grubs and worms and other animal quote unquote foods, it means they don't have access to it. They're not out in the open running around. They're not truly free range. Because if they were, they'd be sneaking bugs and grubs and worms and other things that chickens love to eat. Chickens are actually damn near cannibals, in fact. If you think chickens are vegetarians, I challenge you to spend 2 days on a farm observing the chickens. When I collect the eggs, if there's one that's cracked, if it's just cracked a little bit, we can actually take those for ourselves. The employees and farm owners and managers will just take those for ourselves. They're still safe to eat. We just can't sell them legally. But if there's one that's really spoogy and it's like cracked and oozing, we just throw it on the ground and let the chickens go for it. The only thing chickens love more than like worms and grubs is eggs. Yes, a chicken will take a nosedive for a cracked egg with a raw yolk. You've never seen anything like it. And again, I think it gives me a unique perspective on this whole cow farts are destroying the planet, animal agriculture is destroying the planet. Pardon my language, but bullshit. That is the bullest, shittiest of bullshit. It's just absolutely untrue. It is absolutely untrue. Now, the CAFO model, the Concentrated Animal Feeding Operation, CAFO, that is a different ballgame. So it's not animal agriculture per se. It's not ruminant agriculture per se. It's how it's done. It doesn't have to be done in the feedlot model. And I'm not even here ragging on the feedlot model. Again, many of us, that's all we can afford. And if all you can afford is feedlot beef from your discount store, in terms of metabolic syndrome, diabetes, obesity, PCOS, all that stuff I talk about, you are way better off eating that CAFO beef from your discount store than you are buying organic, artisanal, gluten-free granola bars that are going to send your blood sugar and insulin through the roof. So, there's so much that plays into this, but I just feel that it does help me have more insight into all of this. And I don't even really spend time debunking this stuff because it's not worth my time. I've got better stuff to do with my time. Like actually raise animals, like actually produce food, literally put my money where my mouth is and not just spout off on Twitter, spout out on Reddit and Facebook. Don't be swayed by environmental and animal ethics and farm labor arguments by people who have not spent one day on a farm. Not one day, not 1 hour. And I'm not judging anybody, but I'm just saying, maybe if you have zero clue as to how it actually works, maybe you should keep your darn yapper shut. So, man, that's a little, I didn't mean to be so angry. I really just wanted to say, oh my God, I'm working on a farm. How cool is that? But really it gives me an here's what I really wanted to say. It gives me an appreciation for what goes into producing food. There is so much that happens between an animal being alive with its blood and bones and organs and skin and feet and fur or what have you, until such time as that appears on your plate as a delicious ribeye steak or a pork chop or a slice of bacon, or even until it appears at the store in a beautiful, clean, cellophane wrapped, totally gorgeous piece of steak or pork chop, or a dozen eggs that's washed, totally clean, no signs of chicken poop, no signs of chicken spooge, because it comes out of a chicken's hoo-ha. There's stuff on it sometimes. The amount of work and the number of people involved to make that happen, to bring that animal or that stalk of broccoli or that sprig of lettuce or that head of cabbage from the farm to your table, it really just is so humbling, so incredibly humbling and grounding and centering. We were harvesting arugula a few weeks ago, literally on our hands and knees with scissors or knives, clipping away at this baby arugula, putting it in bags. And you go to Trader Joe's, and like a 6-ounce bag of arugula is $1.99. The stuff is clean, it's gorgeous, there's no roots on it, there's no bugs on it. You cannot imagine what it took to get that arugula in that bag in Trader Joe's. And I'm not one to talk politics or religion or anything. I'm a nutritionist. I don't want to get outside my wheelhouse. But anyone who's arguing against immigration of any kind, illegal, migrant labor, what have you, I dare you to imagine how expensive your food would be without these migrant laborers, without these people on their hands and knees in the Salinas Valley of California or in Florida or wherever they're working, literally back-breaking work in the sun all day, 95-degree heat. They don't have health insurance. They don't get, holidays off, or maybe they do if the farm closes, but you know what I mean? They don't have benefits. They don't have disability insurance. So they don't get to take a bathroom break anytime they please. These people are picking our lettuce, they're picking our arugula, they're picking the tomatoes, they're doing whatever. They're feeding these pigs, they're killing these chickens. Who do you think works in these very difficult, very unfortunate working conditions in some of these factories and processing plants where they're killing chickens all day? That's their job, is to slit the throats of chickens all day or to watch pigs bleed out all day. It just really gives you an appreciation for the number of people involved, even the truckers. How do you think the stuff ends up on the shelf? Somebody has to bring it from the farm or the factory or the plant. There's truckers, there's railway captains involved, like guys and gals, who work on freight trains, who work on freight ships, cargo ships, or even cargo planes, you know? We don't grow coconuts in the United States, maybe in Hawaii, and yet you can go to your local supermarket and there's coconut oil and there's coconut milk and there's kiwis and there's mangoes in the middle of January. Where the hell are those coming from? These things are being brought thousands upon thousands of miles to your plate, to our store. And that's a whole separate argument, the environmental argument. But my point is just in terms of the human labor, the amount of energy and effort and people involved to bring food that we can just go 24/7 anytime we please and get anything we want any time of year, right? Oranges, you can have an orange any time of year. Do you know, like in our grandparents' time, our grandparents' generation, at least mine, I'm 41, so like in my grandparents' time, it was a treat to get an orange. Like that was their Christmas present, is they would get a piece of fruit because it was so rare and it was such a luxury item that like your Christmas thing was your fruit. Now you can have a fruit smoothie 8 times a day if you want. Not that you should, but we are just surrounded by absolute abundance. We are awash in animal food, in vegetable food, in things that are grown thousands upon thousands of miles away that we would normally never have access to. We have access to it round the clock now, for better or worse. But really, it just gives me, I hate to keep repeating that word appreciation, but I don't know how else to say it, just a better understanding maybe of these processes and how damn lucky we are even to have things like pesticides. I know we don't spray it at the farm I'm at. I don't think, some of our stuff is certified organic, some of it's not. We have sort of eco-friendly, we spray, but we don't spray like chemicals. It's all natural stuff. Like I was actually fertilizing some of the plants today. We use, he calls it a fish emulsion. It's like fish stuff that's been processed in whatever way, and you're basically spilling fish guts because it's really good for the soil. That stuff's gonna thrive. I mean, it already is thriving. It's gonna thrive even more. And but even on a conventional farm, let's say even on one of these massive farms where there are pesticides being used and there are sprays and who knows what, that's why we have the abundance we have. You know, that's why we're able to have these things, and that's why we don't have famines anymore. When was the last time the United States had an actual famine where people were like dropping dead from lack of nutrition? Now, we're not talking about people with extremely restrictive diets who choose to be malnourished, and I won't name names, but you know who they are. There are people that in this age of blessed abundance of food and nutrient dense foods, they are purposely eschewing some of the nutrient dense foods. That's their fault. The point is, we have all this amazing food and it's like a miracle. Before this stuff, if your crop failed, you starved. If the aphids got your lettuce, if the aphids got your kale, that crop was destroyed and too bad for you. No kale that year, no kale that season, whatever. Kale is gross. I hate kale. I'm just using it as an example because we have an aphid problem in our kale at this farm right now. And with animals, you know, today was a rough day. We lost 2 birds today. We lost 2 laying hens. Sometimes they just succumb to the heat. It was like 94 degrees in North Carolina today. It's October. What the hell's going on? I don't know. Sometimes the birds just can't take the heat. And we have houses for them. They have shade, they have shelter. We check the water multiple times a day. Sometimes they just don't make it. Or sometimes a predator gets them. And sometimes we discover them after the fact. And I had the dispatch of these 2 poor ladies, these hens, I call them my ladies, and the circle of life is what it is. But if you had an animal that a predator got, you lost the animal, and that could have been your livelihood. That could have been your source of meat, of eggs, of whatever. And this happens. This is the cost of raising food. It's the emotional cost, the economic cost. I mean, that's lost revenue for that farm. We have two fewer hens laying eggs now. So, but it happens, and I think farmers factor that into their bottom line. What do I expect to lose? And sometimes it's a bad season, sometimes it's a good season, so you lose more, you lose less. But it's really just so eye-opening and so educational, and to see how these animals live and how they're raised and what they eat really also gives me a better understanding and appreciation for the differences in the food quality. Because even though I'm always saying do the best you can, and if the best you can is the conventional stuff that's on sale at your regular store, totally cool, I love you, go do it. I've never said that there isn't a difference in the food quality. There is a difference. I think the nutrient content of that meat is different. I think it actually matters more for animal foods than it does for produce, for like fruits and vegetables. I think there may be a slight difference there. The fruits and vegetables, the nutrient content have a lot more to do with what's in the soil where they're grown, the soil mineral content. I'm not sure about the vitamins. I know the mineral content has more to do with the soil mineral content, because the plants, I think, actually create those the vitamins themselves. If I'm not mistaken, some of those vitamins are biosynthesized in the plant from the sun, from the soil, from the photosynthesis. Like, nature is friggin' amazing. But the animal foods, things like beef, pork, lamb, dairy products that come from ruminants, whether it's cows or goats or sheep, goat meat, eggs, all this stuff, I think the feed that they receive makes a big difference. And it could make a difference also if they have access to pasture, to fresh air. I'm pointing this way because my window's in that direction, so I'm like pointing toward the sunlight. I think there absolutely is a difference in the nutrient quality, quantity of those foods, but that difference is slight, I think. It's not huge. It could, maybe it's bigger depending on the farming practices. Maybe it is big, but if you're on a budget, if your funds are limited, and you need to be on a low carb or ketogenic or some variation of a carbohydrate restricted diet, again, you are still way better off eating those conventional animal low carb keto friendly foods than you are eating organic, gluten-free, artisanal, small batch, blah blah blah, non-GMO certified junk food. All of that cereal and pasta and granola and I don't even know what else, muffins and all this other stuff that they sell. And so the difference in that nutrient quality is not enough for you to be worried, or for you to feel guilty, or for you to feel bad, for you to feel like you are not going to get the best results you can get because you can't afford this fancy schmancy local farm food, farmers market food. You absolutely will get amazing results. I said in a video I did a long time ago, well, I think my whole channel is we're coming up maybe on 1 year old. So several months ago, I did a video on food quality, and I said that I think buying this kind of food, buying this sort of local farm food, ethically raised, whatever, for me, the nutrient quality is an issue. I'm not dismissing the importance of that, but for me, if you have the financial means to buy this kind of food, I think the more important reasons to do it are the ethical reasons, whether it is the humane raising of the animals or the ethical farm labor. All the farms I've worked at were well paying. Everyone was respected, and I mean, they were small farms, so I can't really speak to the practices of anyone at any other farms. I can only speak to the ones I've been at. I never asked about anyone's documentation. We definitely had some people that barely spoke English. Good thing I can speak some Spanish. Estudiaba el español en la universidad. In fact, me especialicé en español. I was a Spanish major, dual major in Spanish and creative writing, so I could communicate with them barely. I mean, they speak muy rápido, no puedo entender. I can't understand them because they talk so fast, but I didn't ask because I didn't care. I didn't really care about the status of someone who's in the pig pen with me dealing with the pigs, or who is, you know, with me on the quote unquote assembly line processing the chickens. With me, I cut the heads and feet off, the next guy is taking out the entrails. Like, I don't care where you're from. Are you here? Are you committed to getting the job done? Great, glad to have you. And I know that's really controversial. I'm not a politician. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm not telling you how to vote. This is just the reality of how stuff gets done on a farm. Food does not magically appear at the farmer's market in the freezer. It doesn't magically appear at your Piggly Wiggly or your Publix or your Safeway or your whatever, your Rayleigh's, your Giant Eagle, your Trader Joe's, your Whole Foods. And so yeah, I work at a farm 2 days a week. I don't know how long I'll last, because one thing I can say for sure is that my previous experience in working in the farm store was nothing like this. Nothing like it. But it is, like I said, very gratifying and satisfying in a way that sitting in front of my computer isn't. And more so than doing the actual farm labor, I like being able to say that I do the farm labor. So in order for me to say, well, you know, maybe I do have more insight than the average nutritionist or the average dietitian who's never spent time on a farm, I have to spend that time on the farm. I have to do the work to be able to say, hey, guess what? I've worked on farms. So I have to pay that, you know, physical price. And it has also helped me mentally and emotionally. I've mentioned in previous videos, I have depression. It's much better than it was, and maybe I'll do a more detailed, intimate / personal video on that some other time. But this helps me get out of my own head for sure, because something always needs to be done on a farm. Some animal always needs food, they always need water, because especially in this heat, you feed the animals, and then by midday that water is hot. And drinking hot water for them is better than not having access to water at all. But you better believe every several hours, a couple times a day, you should be emptying those waters, let the water run again. It's hot, the hose, until it's cold, fill it up again with cool water for these animals. You know, someone always needs to be fed or watered. There's always weeds to pick. There's always tomatoes or peppers to harvest. Like there's always a tractor breaking down. There's always a battery to charge. Like there's no downtime. And that's physically, I've come to, what I tell myself is it's physically backbreaking and demanding, but it's mentally very relaxing. I find weed pulling extremely relaxing. It's very zen. I don't really think about much of anything. It's kind of a blank slate in my mind, which is really rare for me. And I do get frustrated. I do get very easily frustrated when something's breaking or something isn't working, because the slightest kink in something can set you back hours, or just cause you to do a lot more physical labor than you needed to do if that thing didn't break or didn't get messed up in some way. And that type of work really instills a sense of patience, a sense of humor. I think you would literally die pretty quickly on a farm if you couldn't laugh at yourself and at just everything, at life in general. And just a sense of, like, the problems that you have outside the farm are just not problems. They're not problems. Like, oh, I'm falling behind on that one deadline for that blog post. It's just a blog post. Nobody dies if I submit a blog post a day late, right? Somebody could die if I forget to put out the water, like an animal could die. Or it just puts things into perspective. It doesn't mean that your problems elsewhere go away. It just really helps reset things. It helps give me a different frame of mind and a different appreciation for the rest of my life. Like tonight, so it's about 4:45 now. When I'm done, I'm gonna get in the shower first of all, but once I'm done and I feel human and clean again, I have a few hours ahead of me of writing work to do, but I look forward to it now. Instead of waking up and thinking, oh God, I gotta sit in front of this computer again, it's like, oh, awesome, I get to sit on my butt in front of the screen, hallelujah, because I'm exhausted. I don't want to be on my feet anymore. So just, some thoughts from the farm, and I may link to a post by Colin Champ. Do you guys know Dr. Colin Champ? Colin Champ, MD, used to work at University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. So Pittsburgh, he just moved to Durham. He now works at Duke University, the medical center. So I actually had dinner with him and a couple of other low-carb people a few weeks ago, and I've been checking out his blog. I used to read his blog, and I've fallen behind. He's a pretty good writer for a doctor, but he had a post on the therapeutic effects of physical work, especially for those of us engaged in more cerebral pursuits like an MD. And he's a researcher too, so he's writing papers all the time. He's, analyzing data. Or for someone like me who's writing all the time, the importance of physical labor, not just for the cerebral people, but he really brought up some interesting points about what is the role of the lack of this type of work in the anxiety epidemic, the depression epidemic, the epidemics of the buzzing of being afraid of life and being boxed into our own lives and our own heads, And I can't disagree. I think he's onto something, and I've kind of thought that for a long time, but he put it into very eloquent words, in saying, not even, it doesn't have to be farm labor. It doesn't have to be something extreme, but just mowing your lawn. We all have like lawn services now, or pool services. We don't even take care of our own stuff anymore. Just washing your car instead of going through the car wash, like doing physical things, getting outside of our heads, getting away from the screens. So now that I've said that, go get away from the screen. I'm going to stop talking now. My website, 2atnutrition.com. Again, check out the notes. I'll have a link to that blog post by Colin Champ. He's an oncologist, by the way. He's a cancer researcher, keto friendly. He's written some good papers, but I'll have a link to that blog post by him. I'll have a link to the Wednesday WINEday event with me and Casey Durango, Wednesday, October 16th. It's a virtual event. That's a piece I forgot. It's virtual. You can join us online. It's like a Zoom, or I think it's Zoom, a Crowdcast. It's Crowdcast. You just click and you can join us for just chit chat, conversation about wine, cheese, keto Q&A, the meaning of life. So if you don't drink wine, you're still welcome. You can sit there with water. You can sit there with kombucha, bone broth, whatever drink you like. And that's it. It's shower time for me, and I'm exhausted. I'll see you next time. Bye.